Two men face the same setback, same problem, same loss, same unfair situation. One of them falls apart, can't sleep, replays it constantly, lets it define the next 6 months. The other one? He processes it, adjusts, moves forward, and comes back quieter, sharper, and harder to shake than before. Same event. Two completely different humans. The difference isn't luck. It isn't personality. It's a single shift in how they understand where power actually lives. 3 ancient traditions figured this out. A Greek slave, a Japanese swordsman, and a Roman emperor who ruled a crumbling empire. None of them knew each other. All of them arrived at the same answer. And the answer changes everything. Once you see it. The slave who was freer than his master. His name was Epictetus. Born a slave in ancient Rome, he had no money, no property, no legal rights. At one point, his owner broke his leg, deliberately, to see how he would react. Epictetus didn't scream, didn't plead. He looked at his owner and said calmly that the leg would break. And when it did, he said, "I told you so." That's not a story about pain tolerance. That's a story about where a man had decided his power lived. Epictetus was born a slave, which in the ancient world meant zero freedom. He couldn't control who owned him, where he lived, or how he was treated. Yet he discovered a freedom that most people never find. He realized that while he couldn't dictate his circumstances, he could dictate his responses, his thoughts, his judgments, and the way he approached each challenge. In his mind, he was already free. Think about that for a moment. A man in chains, legally owned by another person, and yet internally untouchable, because he had drawn a line. On one side, everything the world could do to him. On the other side, the one thing the world could never touch. His own judgment, his own response, his own mind. Epictetus was uncompromising about this. The minute you make outcomes part of your identity, you surrender your freedom. The only goal worth having is keeping your own judgment aligned with your values, because that is the only thing that is genuinely yours. Most people never draw that line. They hand their peace over to traffic jams, to other people's opinions, to outcomes they never controlled in the first place. And then they wonder why they feel powerless. Epictetus didn't wonder. He had already answered the question. The line that makes you unbeatable. The Stoics called it the dichotomy of control. 2 categories. Everything in your life falls into one of them. Things within your control, your thoughts, your effort, your response, your character. Things outside your control, outcomes, other people, timing, weather, reputation, luck. That's it. That's the whole system. The only things you truly control are your own thoughts, choices, actions, and reactions. The aspects of life that stem directly from your will and reason. Everything else, the actions of other people, external events, outcomes, are not under your control. Simple. Almost insultingly simple. But here is why it changes everything. The moment you stop measuring your peace by what you can't control, no one can take it from you. Your boss can't take it. A bad review can't take it. A failed relationship can't take it. None of those things live inside the circle, and anything outside the circle simply cannot hurt what's inside. Marcus Aurelius faced a world no less chaotic as emperor, wars, political betrayal, a plague devastating his people. He couldn't command the world to behave, but he could command himself to act with virtue, discipline, and calm. Think about that context. The most powerful man in the known world. Sitting alone at night, writing private notes to himself, reminders to stay grounded. Not because he was weak, because he understood that even emperors face things outside the circle. The question was never whether the chaos would come. It always does. The question was who was going to be in charge of his response when it arrived. He chose himself. Every time. The swordsman who stopped counting wins. In 17th century Japan, a swordsman named Miyamoto Musashi fought over 60 duels. He won every single one. Some of his opponents were considered the greatest fighters of the era. It didn't matter. At age 30, Musashi looked back on his victories and made a strange admission. His wins, he said, were not the result of mastering strategy. Something beyond him had been at work. Perhaps the natural order, perhaps instinct. He then spent the rest of his life trying to understand and articulate what that something was. What he found wasn't a technique. It wasn't a weapon or a stance or a secret move. It was a way of thinking. He called it the way of strategy. And its core principle was this: there is nothing outside of yourself that can ever make you better, stronger, quicker, or smarter. Everything is within. Everything exists. Seek nothing outside of yourself. Every fighter Musashi faced was trying to win by controlling the fight, managing the opponent, reading the moment, reacting perfectly. Musashi was doing something different. He was unattached to the outcome. He had already made peace with every possibility, including death. And because he needed nothing from the fight had no leverage over him. Musashi argued that success in combat is about discipline and strategy, not innate talent. Those who truly know the way are invincible, not because they are stronger, but because no external pressure can disturb their inner equilibrium. An opponent who needs to win can be beaten. Give him enough pressure and his need becomes a liability. He tightens, he forces, he makes mistakes born from desperation. An opponent who has released the outcome, he has nothing to lose, no grip to break, no fear to exploit. That is what unbeatable actually means. Not that nothing can harm you, but that nothing outside you can decide who you are, what your reaction is really made of. Here's where this gets practical. Something happens today, something bad, an email you didn't expect, a conversation that went wrong, a plan that collapsed. In the space between that event and your response, there is a gap. Most people don't know the gap exists. They feel the event and react in the same breath. The emotion happens, and they become it. The Stoics spent their entire philosophy teaching people to find the gap. Epictetus asked, "If someone gave away your body to a stranger, you'd be furious. Yet you hand over your mind to anyone who comes along, letting them disturb and trouble it. Why is the mind treated as less precious than the body?" That is exactly what happens every time you let an event determine your state. Someone said something cutting, and now they own your afternoon. Something didn't go your way, and now it owns your sleep. You didn't choose that, but you allowed it. The Stoic framework teaches that living in accordance with your own nature, choosing your response, not just experiencing it, is how you achieve genuine strength. Not dominance over others, strength over yourself. And here's the thing most people miss. This isn't suppressing emotion. It isn't becoming cold or distant. Musashi wasn't cold. Marcus Aurelius wasn't numb. They felt everything. They just refused to be governed by it. That is the difference. Feeling something and choosing what to do with it, versus feeling something and being carried wherever it takes you. One of those is a person with a mind. The other is a weather vane. The three shifts that build the mindset. This doesn't happen by deciding to be tougher. Tough is brittle. Tough breaks under enough pressure. What the ancient traditions describe as something different. Not hardness, depth. A rootedness that bends without breaking, that absorbs without shattering. There are three shifts that build it. The first shift, from outcome to effort. Stop measuring yourself by results. Start measuring yourself by how you showed up. Lao Tzu and the Stoics agreed on one thing clearly. All you can really focus on is your own action. Whether you have the external results to show for it is secondary, and often outside your control. The only honest measure is the quality of your effort and your character. This isn't lowering your standards. It's placing your standards in the right location. The result lives outside the circle. Your effort lives inside it. So that's where you invest. A business can fail despite brilliant effort. A relationship can end despite real love. An athlete can lose despite a perfect race. None of that makes the effort wrong. None of that makes you a failure. The effort was yours. The outcome never was. The second shift, from enemy to information. Every difficulty you face is telling you something, not punishing you, not defining you, informing you. Ancient warriors, Stoics, samurai, philosophers were trained to see struggle as a test of character, not evidence of weakness. Modern psychology now calls this cognitive reframing. The ancient traditions simply called it wisdom. Musashi wrote that from one thing, you can know 10,000 things. The loss teaches you what the win never could. The obstacle shows you a gap in your understanding. The failure reveals exactly where the next growth is hiding. But only if you stop fighting the information and start reading it. Most people spend energy resisting what happened, wishing it hadn't, arguing against it mentally, making it mean something about them permanently. The unbeatable mindset does something quieter. It asks, what is this showing me? And then it gets to work. The third shift, from reputation to character. This is the hardest one, because reputation is visible. Character is mostly invisible. Reputation is what people see. Character is what you do when nobody is watching. And the unbeatable person has long stopped building for the audience. Musashi said, think lightly of yourself and deeply of the world. All people are the same except for their belief in their own selves, regardless of what others may think of them. When you need approval, you can be controlled. Withhold the approval and you can move a person in any direction. Give it and take it like a lever. When you have genuinely stopped needing it, that lever stops working, and you become, in the truest sense, undirectable by outside forces. Marcus Aurelius wrote in private, for himself, never intending the meditations to be published. The most powerful man in Rome, writing reminders to himself to stay honest, stay humble, stay present. Not for anyone watching, for his own character. That is the shift. From performing to being, what the unbeatable person actually looks like. It is worth saying what this does not look like. It doesn't look like someone who wins every argument, or someone who never gets hurt, or someone who walks through life untouched by difficulty. The Stoics never promised a life without problems. Epictetus endured slavery. Marcus Aurelius ruled during plague and war. Both found freedom not through the absence of hardship, but through a quiet, unshakable power that no external event could reach. The unbeatable person gets knocked down. They just don't let the knockdown write the story. They feel the loss. They sit with it. They don't pretend, but they return to the only place where power actually lives. The next choice, the next action, the next response. Musashi emphasized clarity of perception, adaptability, and mental composure above everything else. Victory, in his framework, depends on seeing things as they are, without confusion, without attachment, and acting at the right moment. Seeing clearly, acting cleanly, carrying nothing unnecessary. That's the whole mindset. Not a personality trait you're born with. Not a gift reserved for warriors and emperors. A practice. One that Epictetus built in chains, that Musashi built in 60 duels, that Marcus Aurelius rebuilt every single morning before the empire needed him. None of them were born unbeatable. They chose it, repeatedly, in the small moments nobody saw, and that choice is available to you, right now, in whatever you are facing. The event is outside the circle. Your response is not. That's where you live. That's where the power is. There's more to this. The ancient traditions didn't just identify the mindset. They built specific daily practices to maintain it. Practices that work exactly the same way today as they did 2,000 years ago.